Hi and welcome to this video. And in this video we're going to look at a method for multiplication called the lattice method. So I've got set up here a box that is 2 by 2 and then we've got diagonals through it. And later on I'll show you how to sketch that. And it's 2 by 2 because I'm looking at multiplying a 2-digit number by a 2-digit number. So what we do is we put the first number at the top. So the 2 will go above the first column and the 3 above the second. And then we're going to put the second number down the side here. So the first row will be 4 and the second row will be 5. And what we're doing is breaking it down. So we're only ever dealing with one digit multiplied by another digit in each box. So now we come to this first box and we look above and to the side and we're going to multiply 2 times 4. 2 times 4 is 8. And what we do is the tens go at the top. So there's no tens, so I'm going to put a 0. And the units go at the bottom. So I'm going to put an 8 there. Now we move along to the next box, and here if we look above we've got a 3, to the side we've got a 4, so we're doing 3 times 4, which is 12. So the 1 is going at the top for the tens and 2 at the bottom for the units. Now we'll come down here and we'll look at this bottom box here, and if we look up we've got a 2 there and a 5 to the side, so we're doing 2 times 5. And that's 10, so 1 at the top for the tens, 0 at the bottom for the units. And then finally we are doing 3 times 5 in this box. 3 times 5 is 15, 1 at the top for the tens and 5 at the bottom for the units. So we have now multiplied every digit by every digit. The next step is to look at the diagonals, and I might change colour for this. So if we look in that first diagonal, we look below it, we have a 5. So we're just going to write that 5 down. Now let's go to the next diagonal, and we're looking at all the digits that come between these two diagonals. So we've got a 2, a 1 and a 0, and we're just adding all of those numbers together and we get 3. 2 and 1 plus 0 gives us 3. Now let's move to the next diagonal, and if we look in here we've got a 1, an 8 and a 1. So that's 8 plus 1 is 9 plus another is 10. So we can put 0 and we'd carry the 1 over. But in our last diagonal, if we look above that diagonal, we've got a 0. So we've got nothing to add to that 1, so we can just put a 1 there. And that is our answer. Let's check it on the calculator. Always good to check on the calculator just so you can feel confident in your working. There we go. 23 times 45 is 1035. Put a nice tick next to that. Okay, so that was moving quite quickly. What I suggest you do, I've got a few of these to get through. When you feel confident, why not pause and have a go? Okay, so our next sum is 52 times 64. So I'm going to put a 5 above my first column and 2 above the second. And then down the side, I'm going to use my second number. So I'm going to put a 6 there and a 4 there. And now I'm ready to go. I'll change colour. So in this first box, I'm going to do 5 times 6, which is 30. So 10's at the top, 3 at the top, 0 at the bottom. Moving along, I've got 2 times 6, so 2 above this box, 6 to the side, 2 times 6 is 12. So 1 at the top, 2 at the bottom. Let's move to this box here. And we've got a 5 at the top, 4 to the side. So that's 5 times 4 is 20. 2 at the top, 0 at the bottom. And then finally, we've got 2 times 4 to go in this box. So 2 times 4 is 8. So I have 0 tens and an 8 at the bottom. So how did you get on with that? If you paused, then you can see if you agree with my figures. We've done all the multiplication now. So what we're going to do is go to the diagonals, which is where we add up. So here's our first diagonal, and below it we have just an 8. Let's go to the next diagonal, and if we look in between these, we've got a 2, a 0, and a 0. So just a 2. Here's our next diagonal. So if we look in between there, we've got a 1, a 0, and a 2, which gives us 3. And then finally, above this diagonal, we have a 3. So we can just bring that down. So the answer to 52 times 64 is 3,328. Let's get the calculator out and check that. 52 times 64 equals 3,328. Great, so we can put a tick next to that. Okay, carry on. If you feel confident, pause. If not, stay with me. So in this one, we're going to do 74 times 36. And of course, although we're breaking it down, so we're going to have 74 here, 36 down here, we still have to be able to know our 7 and our 6 and our 4 and our 3 times table. So if you struggle with those, you might want to pause for each sum that we do so that you can check before you put your answer in. The other thing that I should say is we've got to fill these boxes up. The order you do it doesn't matter because you're still going to fill up the box with the same answers. So I usually start here and then move along, then go down and move along. But you can do it in any order you like. I just feel that sometimes having a nice method is good just to keep us doing the same thing. So we're repeating the same method over and over. But it's good to know that you can fill in those boxes anyway. Right, let's start here then. So we've got 7 multiplied by 3, which is 21. 2 at the top, 1 at the bottom. Okay, moving along, we have 4 times 3, which is 12. 10s at the top, units at the bottom. So 1 at the top, 2 at the bottom. I'm now going to move down to here. And what many people say is the hardest one of the tables to do, 7 times 6. 7 times 6 is 42. So we need a 4 at the top, 2 at the bottom. And finally, we're going to do 4 times 6, which is 24. 2 at the top, 4 at the bottom. Okay, so slightly harder calculations there. So if you are not good with your tables, you may want to take your time with that. Okay, and now I'm going to change to red because we're going to the diagonals. So underneath our first diagonal, we have a 4. Moving on to our next diagonals, we have a 2, a 2, and a 2. So I'm looking between this diagonal and this. 2, 2, and 2 gives us 6. I'm just adding up now. And then here's our next diagonal. So 4, 1, and 1. 4 and 1 is 5. 5 and 1 is 6. And then finally, we need to look above that diagonal and we have a 2. So the answer to 74 times 36 is 2,664. Let's check it. 2,664. Very good. So we can move on. Pause the video if you want to have a go, or stay with me if you're not quite ready. Okay, we've got 28 times 71. So 28 at the top, 71 down the side, and let's change colour and go for it. So in our first box, 2 times 7 is 14. 1 at the top, 4 at the bottom. In our next box, 8 times 7, another very tricky one. If you don't know your tables well, 8 times 7 is 56. 5 at the top, 6 at the bottom. Okay, I think we've got some easier sums to deal with here. 2 times 1 is 2. So remember, when you put a 0 at the top, saying no tens, and 2 at the bottom. And then finally, 8 times 1 in this box, which is 8. So again, 0 tens, 8 units, and we're done. Let's change colour and go for the answer. So underneath our first diagonal, we have an 8. Moving along, so we're looking between these two diagonals. We've got a 6, 0 and a 2, which also gives us 8. And we're adding up, remember, at this point. Here's our next diagonal. So in between these two, we have 5, 4, 0, which is, of course, 9. And then finally, we need to look above the first diagonal, and that is a 1. So the answer to 28 times 71 is 1,988. So how are you feeling about these? Is it starting to make sense? Let's check. 28 times 71 equals 1,988. Brilliant. Okay, so I've got a blank screen now, so I'm just going to show you how you can quickly sketch your table that you need to use. So we start with a square, and it's got to be, if you've got square paper, it makes it so much easier because you can plan it out. But don't worry if you haven't, you can still just jot it down. It doesn't have to be perfect. But this time I might do a number. No, let's do the first number as 2 by 2. So I'm going to say I'm going to let 3 squares be for each digit. So I want to go 3 across and then another 3 across. So I'm going to draw a box that is 6 across and 6 down. Okay, so there's my square. And then I want to cut it in half both ways. So after 3 squares, I'm going to cut it in half. Okay, so that's our box drawn. So we've got 2 digits one way, 2 digits the next. And then I'm swapping colours here just to make the diagonals stand out. So then I need a diagonal going from there to there to go across my first box. And then I can go to this top right-hand corner, down to the left-hand corner for my second diagonal. And then I just want a diagonal in this last box. So I can go from there to there. And there we have it set up, ready to go. And you can sketch this. It doesn't have to look perfect, but it does help if it's quite neat in design. Okay, let's pick a sum. So let's go for, what should we have? 35 times 28. Let's try that. So my 3 and 5 are going to go above that box. 2 and 8 at the side there. And don't forget, you can pause at any time if you want to catch up or do your own sums. Right, let's start from here. So we've got 3 times 2 gives us 6. 0 tens, 6 units. Moving on. With this box, we've got 5 above, 2 to the side. So we're doing 5 times 2, which is 10. 1 10, 0 units. Now let's move down to this box. We've got 3 above and 8 to the side. 3 times 8 is 24. 2 at the top, 4 at the bottom. And then finally, this box, we have 5 times 8. Probably easier to do your 5 times table. So 5 times 8 gives us 40. Okay, so that's all our multiplication done. I'll swap back to red. And now we are going to deal with our diagonals. So underneath our first diagonal, we have, no, I'm going to go back to purple so it matches our diagonal, sorry. So underneath our first diagonal, we have a 0. If we look between these two diagonals, we've got a 0, a 4 and a 4, which gives us 8. Here's our next diagonal. So if we look between those two, we get a 1, a 6 and a 2. 6 and 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. And then if we look above our first diagonal, it's a 0. So we don't need to worry about that. So 35 times 28 is 980. Get the calculator out. 35 times 28 equals 980. Brilliant. I'm just going to do one more example. And this time I'm going to look at doing a bigger number. So what about if we had to do 325 times 44? Let's do that. So we've got to just draw a slightly different box, but we're going to do it exactly the same way. We need 3 digits across now. So when I draw my box, I'm going to do 3 for the first, another 3 for the second, and another 3 for the third. So that means I need 9 squares across. And of course, it's not going to be a square anymore because I only need to go down 2 because my second number has only got 2 digits. So 3 for the first, 3 for the second. So this time I'm going to have a rectangle like that. I'm still going to have a line going across there, but this time I'm going to have 3 columns. So I need to put a line after the first 3 boxes and then after the second 3 squares, should I say, like that. And it's now set up so that I can put 3 digits across, 325, and 2 digits going down, 44. So you've just got to make sure that your box suits the digits that you need. Right, I'm going to change my line to red because that stood out better. And I'm going to draw in my diagonals. So from there to there, from there to there, from there to there, and from there to there. So every box has now got a diagonal in it. Good. So that's set up and we're ready to go. And now nothing different is going to happen. We've just got more boxes to fill in. So we look 3 times 4. 3 above the box, 4 to the side. So that's 12. 1 at the top, 2 at the bottom. Moving along, we've got a 2 above, 4 to the side. 2 times 4 is 8. 0 at the top, 8 at the bottom. And finally for this row, 5 at the top, 4 to the side. 5 times 4 is 20. 2 at the top, 0 at the bottom. And that's the first row done. We've now got to come down here and look at these boxes. So again, at the top we've got a 3, to the side we've got a 4. 3 times 4 is 12. Next box, 2 above, 4 to the side. 2 times 4 is 8. And actually what we're doing is just repeating because we're multiplying by 4 again all the way along. So in this box, 5 at the top, 4 to the side. 5 times 4 is 20. That's all our multiplication done. We're now going to add up each of the diagonals. So let's look here. Underneath that diagonal, we have a 0. Here's our next diagonal. And in between these two diagonals, we have a 0, a 2, and an 8. So the 8 and 2 is 10. So we're going to put a 0 and carry 1 for our next answer. Here's our next diagonal. So inside here we have 2, 8, 0, 2. 8 plus 2 is 10. 10 plus 2 is 12. Don't forget to add that 1 we carried over. So that's 13. And again, we're going to carry 1. So we're now into this diagonal. So between these two diagonals, we have a 0, 2, and 1, which is 2 and 1 is 3, plus that 1 we carried is 4. And then finally, we just need to look above that diagonal and we have 1. And that number is 14,300. Let's put that as an equals. And then, of course, we're going to check just to make sure we didn't make a mistake. 14,300. Great. So we're done. And that is the lattice method of multiplication. So have a go. You can just make up your own and see how you get on. And that's the end of this video.